Hey, English class. This is Lawson Harris here, and today I'm going to be talking about the economic disparities and, in some ways, the economic neglect of certain people in feed, and more specifically, how Violet's situation serves to juxtapose and his family and how they live. Basically, in the novel, we see a trend of people kind of being pushed aside and maybe not being considered. At some point these consumer mentalities, like the certain people who have the money, are buying things from the feed and are kept in the loop about the different things, and people who can't afford these things are not they're not able to buy these things, and they're not able to actually be part of the global society in this book. Apparently, in the book, it says only 70% of people have feed, and to Titus, even this is kind of surprising. Well, so even when they first meet on the moon, Titus and Violet's there, experiencing her first real trip. She's taking it all in, people watching, trying to understand things. She's uncomfortable, and to Titus, this whole trip, he even quotes Meg Lane. So to him, it's just another trip, and he doesn't even think it's that great. And I'm sure it was really expensive. So, um, and another time, we see as Violet and Titus get to know each other, they start meeting at the mall. And Titus always drives, takes his hover car. Violet usually takes a taxi and meets him there, or her dad drives her. So clearly, Violet's her situation. She can't afford a car. This might also be more because she's not ready for Titus to see how she lives. And to add to this, Titus eventually gets a new car and even goes back saying, "Oh, I don't think I should have gotten the other car." So Titus, the whole way he's structured doesn't really match that. This has kind of led to certain people like Violet, who didn't get the feed immediately, to deal with her problems with intuition and thought, while most people, Titus to some extent, and his friends, they just revert to the feed and don't, they figure out everything on the feed. And ultimately, the feed tech people couldn't even, they said they couldn't help Violet because they quote, his dad said that the feed tech said that had they gotten another better, more expensive model, they might have had more solutions. Another thing we see is certain people, they can't leave their village or town because they can't afford these things. They just can't progress through society. They're left behind. We see this trend nowadays. Certain areas can't access the internet. They can't be really involved with the global society because they can't afford some of these things. Another point in the novel, Titus, when he hears about the villages along the coast, these poor areas completely disappearing, to him he might think, "Oh, that's crazy," but he doesn't really show any emotional or strategic response because he believes maybe these people are disposable. I'm not sure. That kind of seems how Titus and most people may think. Um, Also, we see when Titus does finally go to Violet's house, we see the different amenities that the wealthy people have. A good example of this comes on page 134. It reads, Crayville Heights was all one big area. Instead of each yard having its own bubble with its sun and seasons, they must have just had one sun for the whole place. So this is kind of surprising for Titus because he's lived with their own climate in his own private house. He then even goes further to say the streets were blue and cracked, and they were streets. I mean, like for when things went on the ground, which is something that is foreign to Titus. He's obviously grown up with hover cars or whatever they may have. Um, so at one point, Titus, we know they have their own climate because his parents turn off the sun, and they had already gone to sleep at one point. So, I mean, I'd say M.T. Anderson, even in 2002, he can see this trend of technology coming in and wealthier people affording the better technology. I did some research in 1999, right before, while probably M.T. Anderson was about to write this novel, the BlackBerry came out, and he probably saw this trend of people searching. This is a phone with internet access, which was amazing to him. He saw people surfing the internet, and this is time flip phones. People just call, maybe text, in rare occasions. Now in many places in the world today, I mentioned earlier, they can't access the internet. And we live in a technologically driven society. So it's tough for people when they can't actually be involved. Another thing I thought about, now schools, even in the United States, my old high school, they require students to have laptops, and a lot of schools don't provide these laptops. So they're forcing the families to find a way to buy them. They're forcing the students to work outside of class to afford them. And so this is even placing those people behind. They automatically have a disadvantage to the people who can immediately have this laptop. They can go online and do all their schoolwork. Um, so I think MT Anderson saw this trend, and I guess he essentially kind of predicted the future. On the back of the book, in the synopsis, it reads, "This smart, savage satire depicts a future that is unnervingly close to the here and now," in 2001 or 2. And this trend, obviously now our phones do even more. So, also people who can afford, the new Apple phone, a lot of times the features are not available to others or Android users. Apple has selected the people who can afford the newest items to actually be able to, function this way. That's another way, technology is leaving people behind and kind of throwing them out of the loop. So today I've really just been talking about what I noticed in the novel, the economic disparities. I think it's a trend not only with the technology today, but just the way things are, how certain people are kind of forgotten. Like in third world countries, sometimes there's conflict that we don't even hear about in the United States. Well, anyways, that's all I really have to say today about feed. That's kind of my take on it and the situation. Thank you. Thank you all.